Yak Shamaj, everyone. It's Dan.
And Brendan.
We're back with another Atlas Tuesday telecast coming at you live from beautiful Glendale, California, on the border of Burbank, right next to IKEA. It's a sunny day. It's summer. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. Had my good start, no traffic. Good time to get here.
Facts. Absolute
How
facts.
you feeling, Dan?
I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's nail it out.
Yeah.
We're talking 28 years later. Audience, chat, have you seen 28 years later?
It's pretty good. I
If
saw
not,
it.
what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? It's in the theater now. That is the best way to see it, right?
It's the only way to see it. You gotta
I
rewatch it when it
couldn't
comes
agree
out.
more. And what do we have here?
I think this is the B script on the 72 and maybe the combination they use for 28 years later. No, I think it is.
Similar. Yeah, very similar setup to the 28 years later rig. One of the rigs. They used a lot of different rigs. So if you're out there in the audience and you want to hear more about the techniques, practices, stories of filmmaking, and beyond with the first AC on 28 years later, Spooky. Shout out, Spooky. We see you. Also, shout out to Vadim from B Script. And shout out for naming your focal reducer adapter device for, it's not really a focal reducer. I guess it's a depth of field adapter, relay lens system. Shout out to Vadim for naming it Photon. Photon is a pretty sick name. Of course, photon is a reference to light, but you can see that they've used the Soviet style spelling and the Soviet F for photon here, and they've actually trademarked that. So that's pretty cool that they managed to get the trademark for the
Is it on the other side?
photon theta. Yeah, I guess it's on this side.
Oh, okay. I was like, there's nothing on that.
This is
side.
a very interesting depth of field adapter that we have here attached to an iPhone 16 Pro. Now, they used a 15 Pro on 28 years later, and they use it in a variety of configurations. And I love hearing about why Anthony Dodd Mantle, BSC, ASC, and Danny Boyle chose to use an iPhone for this movie. Now, you probably are someone who's seen the original 28 Days Later, right?
Mhm.
I know I was someone who saw it in the theater back in the day.
Scared me as a kid.
And yeah, I love hearing kind of their ethos and approach to making that film, which was directly but somewhat indirectly influenced by the Dogma 95 style of filmmaking, which is, kind of a set of rules that they would establish as constraints for making the film in the Dogma 95 style. And their sort of hypothesis for why they chose to use DV cameras at that time is that they were thinking about if this kind of, I'll call it what it is, a pandemic, hit the world, what kind of survivors would be filming documentary footage of what was left. And, these are the kind of cameras that would just be sitting out on the street that they might have access to at that time, mini DV cameras. And, of course, that predates iPhones, which is funny because if you think about it, the rage virus, if you had, infected rage virus people, I don't know if an iPhone would exist. Do you? I mean, that's a good question, right?
It might
I
not.
think we have to look back at canon in that storyline and that timeline to see, does it make sense for iPhones to exist 28 years later? Maybe you have some answers to that.
Well, I think in the new one now they kind of said it was more contained to the UK, and so like outside of the world wasn't as affected as much. So if you watch the new one, there's a soldier from another country there, and I think he's another country.
Spoiler alert, but
I
not
didn't
too
say
much. Not
what.
too much of a
No,
spoiler.
no, no.
Not too
Yeah,
much
yeah.
of a spoiler.
So,
Yeah, interesting. Good point.
So maybe technology outside of there still continue to grow, and that's how we're able to get iPhones.
Shout out to Faith and Grace Films for joining the chat from France. We see you. We love you. Vive la France.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. And we have someone from India. Shout out, Indian directographer. How to get your lens. We will DM you later, Indian directographer. Love your handle. That's a cool handle. So, yeah, we're here with this cool B script adapter. And if you want to see more from Spooky, Vadim, and myself, getting into a little bit of a deep dive, technically, artistically, creatively, and more, head on over to the B Script channel on YouTube right now. You should be able to find the release of that interview, and we will also be reposting that and some highlights from that on our YouTube channel. So lovely to see you out there, and we'll just dive right into it. So this is sort of a similar setup to what they used on 28 Years Later for some of the setups where they were using professional cinema lenses, namely the Atlas Mercury series anamorphic lenses, which feature prominently in the film. And we've got, in this case, an iPhone 16 Pro. We have the photon depth of field adapter. They were using a previous generation, slightly different depth of field adapter that uses a ground glass on that movie rather than aerial image with this relay lens system. But this is still quite a cool and interesting system build, and the cage is really nice. They call it the Beast Mod cage. And how much of the lens is used while rigged to the iPhone? Great question from Roy Rosovich. So you're going to get the field of view of the lens. So if we switch, I think you're able to switch. Also, shout out to Justin and B, who are handling your questions, comments, and live technical support. So B, if you could wave to me to confirm that we are getting an image of Brendan there through the system. And I believe B's got a LUT running on the system that is designed to sort of not directly replicate, but kind of reference some of the color grade of the movie in 28 Years Later. So we have this beautiful close-up of Brendan. He's about 3 feet away from the image plane. And here we go. We are shooting him on the 72 millimeter Mercury, and he's looking pretty darn good, I would say. What do you think? You can't see yourself,
I hope
but
so.
I think you look pretty
Thank
cool.
you.
And you can see we've got a nice shallow depth of field. And you know what, audience? Why don't we give a shout out to B and to our setup? So B, I'll rack focus to you back there in the background. This will show the audience the depth of field. Thank you, B, for running our stream. Thank you, Justin, for taking the audience questions and just being overall goated. And then you can't see him that back there behind. You can see him kind of hiding behind his computer screen. That's Devontae. Thank you, Devontae, for always keeping it solid here with us. But yeah, you could see our rig that we're filming ourselves here with the Arri Alexa Mini LF and a new 27 millimeter Mercury, the first of the Group 3 Mercuries to be released. So if you're looking to add a new lens to your repertoire of filmmaking, please try Atlas Mercury Group 3 lenses. If you want a 27 millimeter, DM us and we will get you early access and ship it to you ASAP. I mean, like within the next 10 days.
10
ASAP.
days?
That's right. 10 days.
Damn.
If you order now, we can get it to you within 10 days. So that's pretty legendary for a brand new lens in the lineup. And yeah, you can see we have a nice shallow depth of field. You are going to be somewhat limited. You're not going to be transmission limited in terms of light, but you are going to be somewhat stop restricted in the sense that depending on the focal length of the lens, your aperture with the relay lens system is not going to necessarily stop down your light transmission until you reach a deeper stop, somewhere from 5.6 to 6.3, somewhere in that range. It might start taking effect. That has to do with the way that the relay lens system works, but you're still going to get an incredibly beautiful shallow depth of field, cinematic, and overall lovely image. But you're still going to want to use neutral density filters, most likely, if you want to regulate your light transmission in broad daylight. So highly recommended. So I'm going to try to take some of these questions. We're getting Faith and Grace Film says the render is crazy. Thank you. I agree. How sharp is this lens and how does this perform in low light? Well, the Mercury series lenses, most of them open up to a t2.2 aperture. You've done some low light filming and photography with them, including in France and recently in London. What is your take as a user of the lenses?
They're T-stops, and it's amazing. So, it's going to be great for low light, no complaints. And it has the character built in. Get it in camera.
By the way, audience, you might be asking what the F is a T-stop. Well, we are going to have a really nice solid answer to that for you soon, thanks to B and our Atlas Academy series of films, where you are going to get the answer to your question, what the F is a T-stop.
Is that the title of it?
That's a pun. That's a little
Little on the
Dad
nose.
joke
Okay,
for you.
okay.
Dad jokes on a Tuesday. So can we match the image between Atlas, Orion, and Mercury? Says Joe Manicu too. Absolutely, we know a lot of people that use them. You know, no two lenses are ever going to match perfectly. If you're looking to match a lens to a lens, you're going to want to use the same lens, even if it's in the same family. But as far as intercutting the lenses, they do intercut beautifully. They do have different flare colors. So if flare is something that you are using as a storytelling tool or an imaging tool, you're going to want to know that the Mercury series generally have a gold coating, yellow gold flare, and the Orion series generally have a light blue cyan color flare. But we also have the silver edition Orions, which have an entirely neutral coating and flare more. So they will flare with the color of your light source. If you're in broad daylight, they're going to flare pretty white, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. It's all a creative tool. How much is the 27 millimeter? Says Faith and Grace Films. The retail on this is $9,995. Is that correct?
As of right now,
Yep.
yes.
For right now, you can get it for only $9,995 US. So hit us up in the DMs if you need the link. Let's see. How sharp is this lens? It's quite sharp. It performs well in low light. I agree, the render is crazy. So we got so many great questions, and we also have someone saying Giovanni Ribisi plays the best villain of all time in Avatar searching for unobtainium. You know, I love Giovanni Ribisi. I just want to say, if we have any X-Files fans in the audience, check out the episode with him and Jack Black.
Oh, I didn't know they did it.
That is absolutely goated. Audience, if you know the name of the episode of X-Files that has Giovanni Ribisi and Jack Black, drop it in the comments, win a prize. I know. I'm just not going to reveal it to you. But if you can find out and drop it in the comments, you will be the first to get a prize. So just coming off the comments here. Again, lovely setup. 28 years later, if you haven't seen it, go see it now.
Watch it.
Mercury Series Group 3 are shipping imminently. Today is Tuesday, which means, you know what? Tomorrow is Wednesday. Wednesday. Every Wednesday here at our headquarters in Glendale, California. Come on down. It is a workshop. It's a training experience. It's an educational opportunity for you to become more familiar with our incredible lenses. And in these fast times that we're living in, I would be remiss not to mention there are two very exciting high-speed events coming up this month, August. It's July still, but August is right around the corner. That's how fast we're living. Too Fast, Too Furious, summertime, August. This Thursday, Ari is set to deliver something new. We don't know what it is, but if you check the Ari Instagram page, there are some clues that I think have something to do with high speed and prescient timing.
Yeah.
Atlas is also doing a high speed educational experience and party August 27th and 28th here in Los Angeles, California. Is an exclusive workshop in collaboration with another high-speed manufacturer that is coming to market soon called Pixboom. We are not favoritists in any regard. We love high-speed cameras, and this is your opportunity to learn more, develop your skill set no matter where you are in your educational and career experience. If you are at the very beginning and you want to understand more about high-speed cinematography and anamorphic lenses, August 27th and 28th. If you are a cinematographer who's already working on commercials, music videos, feature films, you name it, and you want to develop a little bit more refinement in your knowledge and skill set and learn from some of the masters of motion control, anamorphic cinematography, high-speed lighting, composition, and motion, August 27th and 28th. Mark it on your calendar. Workshops, great food, great experiences, great friends here in Los Angeles. Be on the lookout for the locations to be revealed soon. It is right here in the LA area. You will not want to miss these workshops. They're going to blow your mind, and it's a great chance to try all three Mercury Group 3 lenses, 24, 27, and 32 millimeter T2.2 in a high-speed environment. Check the RE page for news about what's happening later this week. They're going to unveil something pretty exciting that I think also plays very well with what we're going to be doing in August 27th and 28th. So, hope to see you soon. Roy Rosovich wins the prize for answering the question about X Files. The episode is DPO. I could reveal what DPO are. They are initials in the high score screen of a video game. Great episode. It's absolutely smashing. I don't know if we have any X Files fans. I know you probably like X Files, right?
I think I do now. As a kid,
Bro,
no.
you too spooky?
Yeah, too spooky as a kid.
Shout out Spooky, by the way. I also asked Spooky if you want to know why Spooky's name is Spooky. Check that episode on the B Script and Atlas YouTube channel coming soon about the 28 years later rig. So let's see. Yes, very excited about India and Broadcast India coming up soon. Really excited to see some friends and folks out at our event, 27th, 28th of August.
No name for it quite yet.
Let's see what else we got. Yes, we got a little bit of runtime for the stream. So we have one last question we're going to answer, which is, what do you think about using the depth of field Mark III adapter with Atlas Mercury or Orion series lenses? I think it's fantastic. Not only can you see it in 28 years later, I think this is technically the Mark IV adapter or a special adapter, the photon adapter, but they used the Mark III Beast Grip with the ground glass for 28 years later. And I believe this photon adapter was actually used on a short called O2 that was produced by Evo Time Films and the B-Script team with Mercury lenses. So they really look fantastic. You're not going to want to choose an iPhone for every project and every film, but I really think it works well with 28 years later and different tools for different schools.
Yeah, different needs.
Shout out Dory and Nemo. That's a fish joke. Schools. I don't know. School's almost back in. So let's see. Any other comments and questions? We're going to run a little bit of a panel experience. Big shout out to Michael Kerner. Big shout out to Bianca. Big shout out to Brendan, Hajun, and Matt from Atlas who joined us out at Euro Lens Summit. Shout out to our friends at CVP, especially Jake. Shout out to my teammates on the pub quiz. We technically won that quiz, CVP. It's a shame that you decided not to award us the prize. We were going to give away the prize, but
it's okay.
Next year.
We'll
be back.
Next year.
Yeah, 2 years from now. So without further ado, let's run that Euro Lens Summit discussion where we talk about all things anamorphic, all things lenses, and all things European.
Yeah.
Not all the things, but many of the things. Anyway, a bit of a ramble. Hope you're having a great Tuesday no matter where you are. We'll see you on the other side of the stream. Take care.
Wednesday, don't forget it.
Good morning. How's everybody doing out there? All right. Well, I'm Dan Keynes from Atlas Lens Co., and if anybody wants to come see our presentation on the history of anamorphic lenses, their development, and talk a little bit about bridging the past of cinematography to the possible future of cinematography, come on down. Michael Kerner is here. He's going to help introduce us. He's the creator of the Lens Summit concept in Portland, so in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. He started the Lens Summit to bring camera people together, lens technicians together, and gather around one of our favorite topics, of course, the focal point, you might say, of imaging, the lens. But yeah, he'll be down here in just a moment, so if anybody's interested or curious, love to get more people down here, but happy to have you fine folks here today. So how many of you here are cinematographers? No. How many lens technicians? We got one back there. All right. How about camera assistants? All right, well represented. Here's Michael.
Hey there.
So, yeah.
Test. I'm on.
You sound great.
Yeah. You sound better. But yeah, so anyway, welcome to the Lens Summit, day 2. Are you going to wait, or are you starting right now?
I mean, I just was like, I got on the mic to try to call more people over
Right.
here, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We could just vibe it.
Wait a couple minutes
Yeah,
and
give it a
let
few.
people show up.
Sure.
I think people might be a little rusty from last night.
Did anybody participate in the pub quiz last night?
Yeah, that was
Y'all
fun.
missed out. It was fun.
We should get the results today. There's a little cheating going on though with the web search on the
Uh-oh.
phones.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, not my team, but
No. I can't believe how fast yesterday went. That flew by. How many of you here were here yesterday? All right. And how many are here first time today? Yeah. All right, you're in for a treat. It's going to be a good event.
was anybody here 2 years ago? Nice.
Welcome back.
Yeah, this is sort of an every other year thing. We started it, Kerner Camera, Michael Kerner in Oregon, and we did the Lens Summit 5 times. And then 3 years ago, Yevi from CVP came out from London to all the way to Oregon. You know, I was really honored he made the trip. And then when he was leaving, I said, why don't you guys host it next year? And then they did it 2 years ago, and then we did it last year. And we're going to do it again, hopefully next year if things shape up. Sort of a, uncertain time right now in the film industry, but everybody's positive like we have to be. So, but it seems like it's getting better.
What is everybody's favorite lens? Do you have what's your favorite? No favorites? Orion 50
There you
millimeter.
go.
Good
Nice.
answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You didn't just happen to say that because Dan's up here, did you?
I came here for seeing it on your Instagram.
Oh,
awesome.
really? Nice.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And how about you? Favorite lens? Master Primes. Very good.
I always say Master Prime's the perfect lens in so many ways, and it's just such an iconic lens, and it has such long life. I mean, it's good for generations in that format. Really is. It's really something else. I mean, the studio. Do you watch that? Yeah. The studio. It's all shot on a 21 millimeter, right?
Master Prime?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
21 millimeter Master Prime, and it's all, a series of one long shots. It's pretty impressive, and they really, I think they really broke the mold on how much gimbal and transition camera, just single camera, one-er shots from golf cart to crane to handheld, even from drone or to drone. I mean, it's super choreographed. It's a really impressive show, and I heard they got picked up for season 2, which should be fun.
I'm really excited about
Yeah.
that. It's such a beautiful show, too.
Adam, the DP, is from Oregon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Adam Newport Barra. He shot Last Black Man in San Francisco several years ago, fairly young, and I don't know why he's not ASC yet. He will be, I'm sure. But it's pretty impressive.
How about you? What's your favorite lens? Koa Anamorphic. Great choice.
Cal Anamorphic, yeah.
Favorite lens? Pen F? 32 mil.
24?
Oh, okay. 24.
24 what?
Pen F.
Pan F?
Pen Olympus. 42. How about you? Favorite lens? Schneider.
There you go.
Great. And how about you, sir? Cook S4, excellent choice.
Yeah.
I found out recently that the S4s, if you modify the iris mechanism, will actually open up to around a T1.6.
Really?
Yeah. So they've been hiding speed this whole time.
Why? They
Probably
fall
more
apart?
aberration.
Yeah. Well, you could look at the Hawk T1s and see that happen. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the idea. It's like two different lenses.
Torsten, what's your favorite lens? Of course, that's okay. If you could pick one of yours, what's your favorite single one? Signature Prime 58?
58 signature.
Cool.
One of
Cool.
my favorites is the 12 signature.
I like the 47.
Yeah. I just like it because it's upside down. It's
Wow.
it's like a silver bullet in our quiver. It doesn't go out that much, but when somebody needs it and we have it, it's it shows that we're sort of the real deal.
Awesome.
You know, but it's a lot of money to spend for sure.
Beautiful stuff. Well, I think this is the maximum number of people we're going to get here, and I'm sure more people will join us
Yeah.
as we go. So,
Hey, people, come on in.
come on down. We got good talking here. Okay.
So anyway, welcome to the European Lens Summit. I'm Michael Kerner. The European Lens Summit was sort of an offshoot of the Pacific Northwest Lens Summit, which started in Portland, Oregon in 2017. And I originally started it because I wanted to, I saw the value in going to all these trade shows like Cine Gear and NAB and Cinec and other trade shows and making contacts. And I wanted to bring the trade show to my employees in my community. And so we did that, and it was also a way to bring technicians to my facility and train my lens techs with classes that we do in Oregon at the Lens Summit, where we have master lens technicians give a specific procedure on a specific lens, so then they get training on a procedure on a certain lens, whether it's an Atlas or a Zeiss or an Longines or whatever. And so then that's more knowledge, because it's really hard for lens techs to gain experience, especially outside major markets like, England or LA or New York, where there's, long tradition and a concentration of lens technicians. But I just can't express how valuable it is to make all those contacts that you can make at trade shows, and I'm a big advocate of it. And then when we just do little local events, I'm always like, we have to have name tags, because it's like unbelievable to me that people go, oh no, name tags are cheesy. But you make so many contacts like, oh, you're Dan. If you just saw him, you wouldn't know it was Dan. But he's got a name tag, so you know who it is, and then you get to meet people that way. I mean, it's silly, but it's important. So anyway, but we're super excited that CVP is hosting the European Lens Summit this year, and should be a good crowd today, and it looks like it's not going to be so hot, so that'll be nice.
And lenscraft is such a special thing because there's so much tribal knowledge that, documentation is often sparse, and people are not necessarily willing to share some of the more intimate secrets unless you are there with fellow technicians. And so
in that club,
this is sort of a great way to pass the torch and hand off the torch between people that really truly care about what we're doing. It's a very special craft, and I think that's one of the most cool things about it, is that we're not making tools to save lives, but we're doing tools that will help inspire people's lives and give them more enjoyment in their life. And so it's not semiconductor manufacturing, it's making artists paintbrushes, and I think that's a really important thing to embrace and understand about it. And it's that intersection of precision, craftspersonship, and also artisanship. And so, sort of finding the unique qualities and unique tools to empower people with their own voice.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
special.
everybody loves doing what they do so much in this industry. There's a lot of passion for it. And like we're in rental, and my wife, she's a nurse, and she said, "You guys take it so seriously." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not brain surgery, but we treat it that way, and we really do, I think." So, and you're the same way. So,
It's something we really care about. So glad to see all of you here, and glad to be here with you. So, yeah, without further ado, I think we'll dig right into it. So, I think one reason we're all here is that we all love movies, right? I mean, we've probably all grown up watching films. Just throw out a few of your favorite films, and then I'll share a few of mine. What are your top 2 films or 3 films?
oh, one of my top films is Powwow Highway.
I
Do you
haven't
know
seen
that film?
No.
It's from the 80s. It's just this coming of age Native American film, which I really enjoy. I was thinking about favorite films. And then, some of the traditional ones like, The Godfathers and Apocalypse Now and stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. I hadn't seen it until recently with Shutter Island, which was a total departure, I thought, for Scorsese, right? Amazing movie. And so, there's, I really like September 5, which I just saw not too
Yeah.
long ago. I was really impressed with that, and it was nice seeing
Marcus.
Marcus up here
Yeah.
for her yesterday. That was impressive, and his whole Flare program, his software is pretty amazing.
Cine Lens Flares. Has anyone tried that? Check it out. If you haven't tried cinelensflares.com, amazing tool.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, but there's too many. We did I do like, my kids are in their 20s, so it's like, okay, have you seen, Jaws? Have you seen The Eiger Sanction? Have you seen, all these famous movies that I grew up on? And so we watch those, and so that's a lot of fun. And 50th anniversary of Jaws, that's one of everybody's favorite movies that we were talking a bit about yesterday. So it's a lot. It's pretty cool.
So yeah, I mean, I got into movies at a young age, and some of the movies that inspired me were movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I'm glad you brought up Apocalypse Now. That's another Anamorphic movie, and I didn't watch that at a young age. I watched that as an
Yeah,
adult.
I didn't.
But,
Yeah, I don't know.
such an insane movie. Blade Runner, which I always keep coming back to because that's such a prescient movie in our time now as we enter an age of artificial intelligence and understanding what is more human than human, what it means to be a human being, and how we might need to look out for other human beings in such a somewhat dark time. So it's interesting because I'm an optimist, so I think even though we're seeing a lot of negative things happening in the world, I think things will get a little bit darker before they get brighter again. And so I'm always looking out for what the possibilities are, and that's a big reason that I do what I do. But it was the movie Punch Drunk Love, when I saw this in the theaters in around 2002, that made me stand up and take notice. Why does this movie look the way it does, and what is it about this movie that reminds me of many of my favorite films growing up? And after digging a little bit deeper into that, I found out that Robert Elswit and Paul Thomas Anderson chose Panavision G series and E series anamorphic lenses to make this movie. So when I saw this film, I was really taken with the way it looked, and I couldn't quite connect mentally. I loved it so much, but after digging research, I realized, okay, part of the reason the visual qualities of the movie are the way they are is because of anamorphic lenses. And so the first question I asked next was, what is an anamorphic lens, and why does it look this way? So we're going to dig into why anamorphic lenses exist, and why I find them so special, and why I think it's important to carry that technology forward into the future, and that's why we started Atlas. So another more recent anamorphic film, also with one of my
Uncut
favorite
Gems,
actors,
yeah.
Uncut Gems.
It's amazing.
So Punch Drunk Love. Anybody seen that film?
I haven't seen it.
You've got to
Oh,
see it,
I have
man.
not seen it.
This is a kick-ass movie. So if you haven't seen it, see it. And if you've seen it already, watch it again. It's worth a reviewing, a revisitation. It's amazing because the lens is a character in the movie, and so it's sort of representing Adam Sandler's mental state. So there's little visual cues that are used to kind of indicate how he might be feeling or thinking. And I think that's one of the most important things about a lens and about movies, is that it's not necessarily just what you see or the story that's being told, but it's how it makes you feel. So through those feelings, we're building an emotional connection with other people. It's the next best thing to psychic communication. So you can have a vision, you can have an idea. As a camera person or as a director, you can take that vision or that concept and bring it forward and project it into the minds of an audience and share that vision. And so
Just by the lens type, but as Dan's saying, you have to be so specific and have such a specific vision to be able to say that I'm going to use this lens because it's going to convey this mood for the film. I mean, it's sort of mind-boggling when you think about it, and then incorporating that in lighting, which, of course, lenses are a huge part of it, but I think a lot of times we overlook the lens, or we look too much to lenses and overlook the lighting, which is, I think a lot of people that are starting out think lens is their silver bullet, but the real silver bullet, if you can light and complement that lens through lighting. A lot of people use the lens as a crutch because they might not be able to light themselves out of a paper bag, but so I think it's something that needs to be talked about as well, is how important the lighting is, like you were talking about. Darius Kanji leaning into the Star Wars lighting in Mickey 17.
did anybody see Mickey 17? Such a strange movie, and I love the concept, but one of the reasons I enjoyed the movie so much is that Darius, if you're a fan of Empire Strikes Back like I am, you could see that Darius is directly paying homage to Empire, and he's enjoying himself.
Because it's like an ice planet kind of thing, right?
Yeah. There's the ice planet, and then there's also sort of this dark interior with atmosphere and uplighting.
Right.
And a little bit of colored lighting, but not over the top. And so, like many of us are inspired by things that we interact with on a daily basis. The way that I learn lighting is by learning how to see. So I as a child, would just be fascinated. In my living room, there would be a tree outside and it would be windy, and the California sunlight would be raking through the leaves and creating a dappling pattern on the carpet. And I would just become mesmerized by seeing that. And I'd say, well, I'm hypnotized by this. I don't know why, but I wanted to understand more about the world I live in and kind of become connected with my surroundings and connected with other people. And I think that's really the most important thing about what we do as camera people, as people in the movie industry. We are trying to build connection with other people, and that's why we're here at Lens Summit. So it's about meeting people, connecting with people, sharing ideas, and that's the most important part of humanity, is storytelling. So has anyone here ever heard of the Lascaux Caves in France? There's these caves, and in the caves there's pictographs on the walls.
Like 20,000 years old or something, or more.
Super ancient. I don't know off the top of my head, but
Werner Herzog did the film on the caves. Didn't he do?
I haven't seen that. I should see that.
Yeah, it's a crazy, sarcastic kind of movie. It's pretty funny.
I gotta check it out. Herzog is so amazing.
Yeah.
But in these caves, there's these paintings on the wall, and the pictographs. All the people and the animals have 4 sets of arms, 4 legs. They're kind of sketchy looking, so there's kind of multiple lines that make them up. And for the longest time, anthropologists and archaeologists couldn't understand why the pictographs were rendered this way. And it wasn't until someone walked into the cave with a torch that was on fire, flickering, and it caused the illustrations, the pictographs to animate, that they understood motion picture has been with us for much longer than we might think. And so that's really why we're here, is that storytelling is something that is an innately human part of history, and we hope to carry that tradition forward just with newer and different tools. So
It's a pretty amazing story.
and to your point about lighting, many of us are influenced in cinematography by Dutch masters,
Right.
and they were just observers of light and of the way the world works. And so, art history is something that we can always find inspiration from if we're feeling down or if we're feeling disconnected. I would encourage everyone to.
And you see a lot of that with John Fowler's Film and Digital Times. He's always referencing the Dutch masters or Asian paintings and incorporating that into the present day cinematographers. It's pretty cool.
So this film, deeply inspired me and put me on the quest of trying to understand, first of all, what is an anamorphic lens, and why does an anamorphic lens exist, and why does it appeal to me so much as a creative person, or someone that's seeking truth or story in the world. So just bring up a few more anamorphic films. Of course, all of those films that we mentioned earlier are things that inspired me and interested me and intrigued me. And most recently, one of my newer favorite films that used anamorphic lenses is The Creator, also prescient because of artificial intelligence, but one of my favorite directors, Gareth Edwards, and of course one of my favorite cinematographers, Greg Fraser, alongside Oren Soffer, filmed this, and they used a vintage Kowa 75mm anamorphic lens alongside an Atlas Mercury 42mm lens. So that was a very special full circle closure for me. So I just want to briefly talk about what an anamorphic lens is, because it's something that deeply inspired me once I started to understand what it is, and I went on a quest to find out why it is. So that's a question I would encourage everyone here to explore deeper in their lives, is why. And if you ask why 5 times, you might come to the root of why something is actually happening. And so my talk today is called Third Order Consequences of the Cinematic Kind. So oftentimes we find ourselves doing something, seeing something, experience something, and it may not immediately be clear why that is. And if you don't ask why 5 times, you won't get to that root cause origin point. So often we're in such a convoluted, interconnected world that it is sometimes confusing to know the true reason why something is happening or why we're doing something. So we'll dig into that a little bit with anamorphic lenses here. First of all, what does the term anamorphic mean? And anamorphic comes from the Greek term anamorphosis, which means to change form. And so it's an intentional distortion to pictographically change something. So if we look at this sidewalk chalk drawing, you could see that it looks like these 2 young ladies are in a 3-dimensional space standing on these piggy banks. But if you viewed this, when we're in this orthogonal perspective, it looks perfectly 3-dimensional and very deep. But if we viewed it straight on, it's actually wildly distorted. And so the intentional distortion of an image to tell a story or create a perspective or point of view is something that dates back in art history to ancient times, again, just like those cave paintings. And so there's actually case studies of cylindrically shaped reflective mirrors that were used to encode optically illicit artwork or secret messages. So you could look back into some artwork from ancient China where emperors would have erotic artwork inscripted into like a fanned out diagram, and a layperson, when they'd walk by and see it, would just see, clouds. And unless you have this special cylindrically shaped mirror, you couldn't encode and see the illicit artwork that no one else was meant to see. So this is a way of secretly encoding things. And so you can think of an anamorphic lens as a compressor and decompressor. So what it's doing is
And everybody knows how they started, right? With
Oh, we're going to get into that.
Okay,
yeah. So
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So intentionally, it's a way of compressing and decompressing an image onto a square strip of film. So again, we're going to dive back into history a little bit, but the first thing I want to set up is that there's three aspects of filmmaking, and this influences and affects all of us, whether we know it or like it or not, and that goes into that 5 whys thing. So there's three spheres of influence. Commerce, which is business, it's the financial mechanism of what we do. Technology, our art form is an inherently technical one. Without technology, we wouldn't have movies, and even fire is technology. So if you think of those ancient cave people and the pictographs, fire was one of the first technologies that humans were able to apply, and of course, we discovered it and then used it for our own benefit. And then finally, artistry, which is the heart of what we do. So it's bringing heart and human spirit into our endeavors. And these three things are inextricably linked. So something that happens in the world of business will inevitably affect technology, and that technology will inevitably affect artistry. But artists will also affect business, and artists will also affect technology. And so these three spheres are inextricably linked by invisible strings, and those strings will inevitably pull third order consequences, things that are fascinating, unexpected, and wildly amazing, and well beyond what we can imagine. So it's often difficult to infer what may be possible, but we can kind of extract what's already happened and get a better picture of where we are now. So to your point, imagine it's the 1950s, and for a while you've been going to the movies, but now you have the Netflix of your time, television. So now you don't have to leave your house to be as entertained. You can sit down and watch free-to-air movies that are being rescreened and restreamed over the air, and microwave a TV dinner and sit down in the living room and not leave the house. And of course, this was a threat to the financial success of the studios and the theater chains, and those two were highly dependent on people going out to the movies, buying the movie tickets, buying popcorn, hot dogs, refreshments, paying for parking. And so, just like now, a night out costs a lot of money. And that keeps people employed, keeps people developing new technologies, and keeps people telling stories. And so that circle could keep going. But in this case, that broke the chain. So television stations were airing old movies without paying a license fee. So people were losing residuals. So the actors were pissed. And the studios didn't have to make as many movies because people weren't going out to the theaters. So they were upset. Does that sound familiar to kind of the time we're living in, where there's a lot of Netflix streaming or things of that nature, and maybe we don't have to go out to the theater, and that sort of changed or upset the mechanism. And distribution deals are different, actors deals are different. So we have things like writer strikes, actor strikes, and those inevitably affect us either as a rental house or as a camera person, set lighting technician. So all of these inextricably linked career paths upsets the chain of commerce, and that was a thing that they were experiencing 70 plus years ago. And we're back here again today.
It was just like, they thought radio would go away when TV came as well, right? But it didn't go away.
Changed.
It's just changed. Everything just changes, and movies will still be here. Just got to encourage people to go out to the cinemas, I think.
And so, to that point, that's exactly what they wanted to do. They said, how do we get people back into the movies and create an unforgettable experience that will compel you to leave your home and make you say, hey, we have to go to the movies. So the first thing they said is, well, we know something that's very popular at this time is surround sound. People were buying hi-fi records that would have stereophonic sound for the first time and having listening parties where you'd hear safari animals in your own living room, and people would go to people's houses for a party and have some drinks and be playing hi-fi records and experiencing something unique and creating a unique sense of home entertainment. And they said, well, if we create an immersive experience that forces people to leave their living room, come to our theater, and see these widescreen movies that surround you, it's almost three-dimensional. In a way, it's a precursor to virtual reality. That will be interesting and compelling enough to bring people back to the theaters. And they said, well, spectacle has always worked before. has anyone ever seen The Great Train Robbery? It's a silent film where there's a train that's literally running right towards the screen, and that's in the silent movie era, and you could say that was viral for its time. So people would go to the movies, say, "You'll never believe what happened last night. I was at the movies, and I thought a train was going to hit me. You have to go
And
experience
they
it
ran
for
out of the
yourself."
theater.
Yeah, they ran out of the theater. They were so
Yeah.
freaked out, and so that was a viral sensation. They'd go to the water cooler at work next day and tell all their friends about it at work, and then their friends would go out to the movie theater, and that would generate more recurring revenue for the theater. So it even goes back to the times of the Nickelodeon, and you could see actually that's kind of making a comeback in a sense. So does anybody know about Real Shorts? It's like an online movie platform where you're watching vertical
Right.
movies on your phone, and you buy tokens. So you watch like 1 minute of a movie at a time, and you pay by the token, and that has historical precedent as well. So this is like a viral sensation right now in the U.S.
And they're
People
short
are-
films.
they're feature-length
Oh,
movies,
they
but
are.
it's a minute at a time. So
Wow.
you're paying by the minute, and people will spend $40 on a movie, but 1 minute at a time. So you're accumulating these tokens and watching tiny slices of a movie. And I mean, it sounds crazy to me, but it seems to appeal to
That's
people.
what the kids are doing.
And middle-aged
Yeah.
housewives apparently. So no disrespect.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not for me, but
No, I haven't
it
seen
seems
it.
to be working. People are making money doing it, and people are watching these films. So it's fascinating because it's just a different world to me. But historically, has anyone ever heard of the Nickelodeon? You go down to kind of a theater space, but it's like an arcade. You look in a little box, you put in a nickel, and you turn the crank, and there's a little animation that plays, and then you go to the next one, and you see a small segment. So, same mechanism, different times, different platform. But anyway, back to the point here. Immersive movies in a theater. How do we do it? And so they said, well, the easiest way, technically, the engineers of the time said the easiest way to create an immersive movie is we'll just get, 3 cameras, we'll put them side by side in an array, and we'll film everything that happens, and then we'll go into the theater, and we'll have a three times as wide screen, and we'll run 3 projectors, no problem, right? That's easy. It's using all the standard equipment that we have, just more of it. And so they did that, and it's called Cinerama. And this was in the early 1950s, and what this proved for them is that, yes, people will go to Cinerama movies because it's an experience. So at that time, they'd booked out Cinerama screenings for over a year, and they'd sold them advance tickets. Said, okay, we've got a business case here. People will go to the movies if it's an immersive experience. But there's only one problem. It's costing us so much money to run 3 cameras, 3 times as much film, 3 times as much development, and then we have the technical problem of trying to synchronize 3 projectors. And so actually, we're losing money doing these movies, but it's showing that people will come to the theater. So the business people at the studio said, okay, we need widescreen movies, but we need them cheaper. So how do we bring the cost down on that? And so they thought of, okay, what we need is a codec to package it. So a way to cheapen the density of what we're doing. So what we're going to do is optically compress a wide panoramic field of view onto a square strip of film, and that's exactly how an anamorphic lens works. So Henri Chrétien, who is a French optician and astronomer, had in World War I actually developed a way of seeing a wide angle field of view through an erect viewfinder. And it wasn't anamorphic at the time, it was just a wide angle telescope. So if you think of a telescope, you think back to Galileo in ancient times, not ancient, but very olden times. And Galileo said, well, what we want to do is create an erect eyepiece so that you can look through something and see something not inverted. So if you have a normal single lens telescope, group telescope, the image will be inverted. So the image plane is flipped upside down. But we need an eyepiece that we could look through so that it's erected. Now, Chrétien took that principle and inverted it. So he had created the inverse Galilean telescope, where you look through a viewfinder and you have a wider field of view than you would normally need, and that was deployed on tanks in World War One, so that you'd look through the eyepiece in your tank and know if there's people coming from the left or the right to attack you through a small slit. So after the war, he said, well, we could also maybe apply this technology concept to making movies. And people said, yeah, I don't know, that's not that important. It's, we're trying to rebuild after the war and get back to what we're doing. And then, a second world war happened after that, unfortunately. So a lot of distractions from art and, telling great stories. But thankfully we got through that time. And thankfully some people had taken note of Chrétien's invention and his patent. And people from 20th Century Fox Studios flew out to France, licensed the technology from Chrétien, brought it to America, and called it CinemaScope. So CinemaScope is the trade name for anamorphic filmmaking. And so by basically monopolizing that technology, 20th Century Fox then forced other studios to license their codec, so that if Columbia Pictures is making a movie or MGM is making a movie and they want to distribute it in CinemaScope, they have to pay a license fee to 20th Century Fox. And so again, this is guaranteeing the financial success of their studio and their platform, and we can see precedent today as well related to that in things like the MPEG Motion Picture Standards Group, things like Dolby Atmos licensing, things like IMAX, where if they're not filming with an IMAX camera, you're getting IMAX certification. And so this is a way of guaranteeing certain levels of quality or certain technical parameters, but also getting revenue. So again, money is a big driver in all of this. So you can see how commerce is driving the technology, and that's affecting the way artists are doing their work. So thank you, Henri Chrétien, for your contribution to what we do today.
Yeah.
And Bosch & Lomb was the company contracted by 20th Century Fox to make the first American CinemaScope attachments. And so this is something where the technology is beginning to affect the artists, because cinematographers and camera assistants would have to use these attachment lenses in front of a standard lens on their camera. And we all know how challenging it can be to be a camera assistant on a regular film, where you just have one lens to focus at a time. And maybe there's at most 3 levers. There might be an aperture lever, there might be a focus lever, and there might be a zoom lever, right? But if you're using an anamorphic lens at the earliest days, you'd have to have 2 focus levers, and they would focus in opposite directions. So if you were a camera assistant at that time, and they said, we're filming CinemaScope, you would be hating life, because not only do you have to focus with 2 levers at the same time in opposite directions, they're asynchronous. So the amount of distance you'd have to adjust on the 2 lenses, you'd have to be doing that manually with 2 hands. And at that time they would also all be dressed in suits on a film set, so nobody's wearing shorts and tank tops. Everybody's dressed to the nines in a hot day with arc lamps blasting heat on you and pulling focus with 2 levers. And then they'd go to watch their film dailies, and they'd be smoking cigarettes, watching their dailies, and sweating, just stressed out of their minds that they're going to buzz the shot on, if not one of the lenses, both of the lenses, and waste a whole day's worth of filming. So those poor camera assistants were at the butt end of the technology change, and that created a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and the artists and the artistry were affected by this technology. Of course, it was great for the business people, because people were happy to go see these beautiful panoramic movies, but everybody else was super stressed out. So now this is a case where the artists are going to affect the technology, because they revolted and say, this is crazy, I don't want to work this way, we have to change something about these lenses, or else I quit. So they went back to the drawing board, and again, the technology was changed by the artists, because these are the first ever lenses to use computer-aided design. So Bosch & Lomb worked with IBM to help calculate integrated CinemaScope lenses with polynomial equations that would drive the two groups, the primary group and the anamorphic group, asynchronously with a timed mechanism, with a timed cam. And you could see these gentlemen doing the calculations here for an anamorphic lens and the integrated cinemascope lens, which this gentleman has. And if you visit me out in California, in Los Angeles, I'll be happy to give you a tour of the Keynes Family Anamorphic History Museum, where we actually have many of these anamorphic lenses from the earliest days, including some lenses that were literally used on the film Rebel Without a Cause.
In your
by
shop?
Warner Brothers. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so next time you're
Yeah,
in LA,
yeah, I will.
come, we'll give you the tour. You have a question? This would be around 1955. So he asked what year this is taking place. So between 1952 and 1955 is when a lot of this work took place, and the Computer Aided Design Academy Award they took home in 1958 for some work they did in 1957 using the computers to calculate the array angles and the movement mechanism with the polynomial equation of the lens. Yes?
So I've used a front anamorphic adapter before,
Yes?
where you set the lens for infinity,
Yes?
and you just focus one. How is that different?
That's a great question. So this gentleman is asking about using an anamorphic lens that has a collimating group in the front. And actually, this ties into patent technology. So Chrétien's patent was filed in the late 20s, and it was starting to get close to expiring here. So I believe Chrétien filed his patent for the hypergonard, which is a dual element, dual group focusing system in 1928. And then there was precedent in patent in 1931 for another anamorphosis system where you have a fixed primary lens, a fixed anamorphic group, and then a collimating group in the front of the lens by Newcomer. So that patent dates to 1931. So these people weren't able to apply the Newcomer patent without a license. So a lot of this is coming back into business again, where if somebody's got a patent and they're sort of, at the time they didn't have the term patent trolling, but patent controlling, you would be regulating use of these technologies through the patent. And so the Newcomer patent was preventing a lot of people from applying these technologies to their movie lenses. And actually that's an interesting additional historical aside, but a lot of the reason the movie industry in the US was in California is that Thomas Edison was trying to regulate filmmaking through patent licensing in the earliest days in the East Coast. And so all the people who really wanted to make movies and not pay the Edison license moved out to California, and that was because it was just far enough away that they couldn't stop them from breaking the patent. So they said, F you, Edison, we're gonna go do what we want, we're gonna have our studios try to stop us. And bless those people, because to hell with Edison. He was a jerk. But same with these guys. So, technology, artists, and commerce, often there's friction or tension between these things, and that can be beautiful or it can be dangerous. So it just depends on what side of the coin you're on or how you want to stretch it or move it. But to that point about the Newcomer patent and the Newcomer technology, there is lenses as early as the early to mid 1950s from companies like ISCO. So in the museum I actually have a Newcomer patent-based ISCO lens, and you can see the Newcomer patent. Of course, patents in Russia didn't apply. The Russian Lomo round fronts used that system all the way up to Hawk, all the way up to Atlas, Orions. We all use a variation of the Newcomer patent in those lens designs. But there's all these people, again, pushing the technology, evolving the technology, and that's the beauty of the tension between these things, is that it can create new opportunities, new possibilities, and new ways of thinking. So that's a really fascinating and great point that you bring up. And at the time, another challenge with the front collimating lens grouping is that the glass types that were available, you would need bigger and bigger elements in order to achieve that. And the bigger the glass element, the more it's going to cost, the more complex it will be. And the indices of the glass would have varieties of aberrations when you're getting into that big of a piece of glass in terms of transmission and in terms of overall lens performance. And at that time, lens speed was actually, we think of lens speed as being pretty important now, but at the time, if you have at most 25, maybe 50 ASA film, if you're pushing it, you need all the light you can get getting through to the image plane. And that was one of the other key parameters that kept the Newcomer base lenses from being as popular. But great question, thank you for that.
Do you have a lot of, or do you have a lot of patents on your lenses?
We do, so
Yeah.
not a lot, but
But
we have
some,
enough.
yeah,
yeah.
Just
The
curious.
Mercury lens series in particular is interesting because it's one of the first new applied anamorphic, anamorphic focusing group systems patented within the last 70 years. So I'm going to get into the Panavision system next because that's a huge influence and inspiration in terms of why I love anamorphic lenses. So many of those films that I was referencing earlier that are my favorite films were made with Panavision C series and B series lenses. Movies like Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, the original Star Wars, uh, all used Panavision lenses. So
And you can see at the Panavision booth side by side identical shots with different series of lenses. You know, the different series of spherical anamorphics side by side, which is pretty interesting and labor intensive shoot that they put together. That's for sure. It's pretty cool
It's
to
really
check
cool.
out.
And we're going to get into the technology there too in a second. So those lenses actually were born from this in a way. So the challenges and difficulties of using these lenses became manifested once they built those computer-aided lenses, the Bosch and Lomb integrated CinemaScope Baltars, which are huge. They're, they weigh about 30 pounds each or more.
Wow.
And they're huge castings and huge gear mechanisms with an integrated follow focus. So for the camera assistants, it was great because there's really clear markings, they're easy to focus, and you can go try them in our museum and see that the focus mechanism is still just as beautiful and functional and smooth as the day it was made. So that's a really amazing, it's a living museum, so you can actually come try the lenses, including the CinemaScope Baltars, including the Newcomer ISCO lens that I have, and many, many more amazing historical anamorphic lenses. But one of the key artist parameters that was difficult with these anamorphic lenses after they finally integrated the lens was that when you would do a close-up, and by the way, a close-up was limited to about 6 feet away from the image plane, you'd start to have mumping. So the anamorphic lens would actually have less compression ratio when you get into a closer focus range. And so the faces of the actors and actresses would be warped out and not as attractive. And so if you're, top talent and you go to a daily screening or a movie and your face looks not how it looks in real life, you are going to be upset. And so this is going to really upset the artists, it's going to make the cinematographers look bad. The cinematographers are going to blame the camera assistants, they're going to blame the studios, and so the chain of blame really wrought havoc at that time, and people were upset. And interestingly, at this time, Panavision had started to make projector lenses, so they hadn't really even started making camera lenses yet, but there was such a demand for CinemaScope distribution that Bosch and Lomb couldn't keep up with the production volume needed to make projector lenses for all the theaters that wanted to exhibit CinemaScope films. And so cleverly, Robert Gottschalk and the team at Panavision said, okay, we can come up with a less expensive way to make projector lenses and get them distributed out into the world. And the way that they came up with to do that was with prisms. So a prism can actually be used to create a sense of anamorphosis as well, stretching the image and projecting it back out onto a theatrical screen. And with those prisms, you also have the ability to rapidly variate the amount of compression by just turning a knob. So you can just change the prism angle and quickly change the compression ratio of the image. So if we think back to that image I showed of the young ladies from the angle on the street, if you change the angle of the prism, you can change the compression ratio of the projection lens very quickly. The one downside of a prism is that it's not achromatically corrected, so there's only one type of glass usually in most prisms. And so color correction, you might have a lot more lateral color with a prism. So the more you deviate the prism, the more the light rays are going to separate and fan out, and you'll see color being separated.
And then if somebody's walking to the camera, you can't pass that plane? Or
it's harder, yeah, it's very
because
complex
you can't flip
once
it
you
in
get
the
into
middle of the shot.
Exactly.
So, but
in the projector you can, so they would variate the projection. So, they'd have projectionists up in the booth smoking a cigarette again, and basically DJing the movie. So as
Wow.
the movie's playing, they'd go into a close-up and then turn the knob. You know, they'd have very comprehensive notes of like, okay, you know, Frank Sinatra is going to be close to the lens at this scene at this moment, and you know, they'd have little marks on the film ticker to say, okay, turn the knob. You know, no automation, just manually.
Wow.
Okay, we're going to squeeze a little more here so that you know, Betty Davis doesn't look weird. So pretty crazy
Yeah.
stuff, and you know, this is of course putting pressure. Now the projectionist is an artist too. They're having to really feather it, you know, and ride the control knobs. But camera people got word that Panavision had come up with this very clever solution for projection with a variable squeeze anamorphic. And they said, hey, if you can do this on the projector side, what can you do for us on the camera side to make this easier? Because we need close-ups, and you know, this is a time when reflex viewing wasn't readily available in cameras. You'd have a rack over finder. So if we see people out going like this, a lot of us like to make fun of when we see someone doing this. It's like, oh, that's so Hollywood and it's so phony, like nobody really does that. But at the time, that's literally how you would line up a shot as a director's finder. You'd go with the director and they'd put their hands up and say, okay, that's the shot. They'd get their giant dolly and roll the huge camera over, and there's a lineup on the camera with goalposts like that, and you'd match your goalpost to where the director put their hands, and you know, your parallax finder would line up with that hand view. And so I think that's a really fun and unusual sort of historical little tidbit. But it also gives me so much appreciation for the way operators had to work, because if you think about it, the shots that you see in these movies, you know, movies like Touch of Evil, Citizen Kane, stuff like that, they didn't have a reflex finder, and they're getting these shots that are so technically perfect and just ever so subtle in the way that they're framing. It's impeccable. It's amazing stuff. So I just have so much love and appreciation for that when I go watch classic movies, and to know how difficult that was, and how easy we have it today by comparison. I just want to thank the ancestors.
And now we're shooting digitally, so you can just sort of hose it down. You know, it doesn't cost any money, and obviously back in the film days, you know, money's just flying through the gate. You know, and it's not that people don't take it seriously now, but back with film, it's like, okay, every minute we're spending X amount of money, and it's a lot.
There's
And
a
it's
lot
time.
riding on it.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
know, you know, you didn't know if you got it until you watched the dailies.
Yeah,
and
which
so
might
it
be
was
a
really
couple days later, depending on where you are. So it's or a week even remotely.
high pressure.
Yeah, and then the focus puller loses his job or her job when they see the dailies. You know, several days later, maybe if they didn't nail it,
Yeah.
they buzzed it.
So the people at Panavision cleverly came up with a solution to variate the anamorphic squeeze by using a group of counter-rotating cylinders that would adjust the compensation for the squeeze when you'd get into close-up. And they were also innovators in the reflex camera system, so they were some of the first to adopt Mitchell reflex cameras, and working closely with studios like MGM to place the lenses at the studios. So another important business consideration is that at the time, studios were more vertically integrated. So, you know, Warner Brothers would have a camera department, 20th Century Fox would have a camera department, and they would not like to rent lenses or equipment from other studios because you're losing money, you're giving other people money. So they would all try to keep things as vertically integrated as possible. And in a way, Panavision is responsible for developing the rental house model that many of us benefit from today, by breaking that studio model and forcing them to rent the Panavision lenses in order to make these CinemaScope movies, because they made the best lenses for making a CinemaScope movie. And so they actually kind of broke the studio system, broke that patent control and regulation by having their own patent, and really changed the business and changed movie making forever. And of course, Americans and, you know, Hollywood were not the only people to make CinemaScope movies, so it's important to note that technology in this case and artistry were a different way of conveying a Cold War messaging, which is that our system is better than your system, or our way of doing things is better than your way of doing things. And for me, I'd much rather be jousting with artistry and technology than mechanisms of war and killing. And so, the Soviet Union had their own camera systems and their own movie systems, and they made Lomo anamorphic lenses. So they said we can be just as good as these Western people, and we have, incredible wide-angle panoramic movies just like them. And in post-war Japan, Kowa, as you mentioned, had their own anamorphic lenses, and companies like Nippon, NAC camera, and many others were making their own variations on this anamorphic concept that had initially been brought to fruition by Chrétien. So, why do we need an anamorphic lens today? Because if the whole point of having an anamorphic lens is having a panoramic image, having a widescreen field of view, and now that we're shooting with modern digital sensors that have more real estate and are even natively widescreen in their orientation, I'm looking at you, Arri Alexa 265, Blackmagic Ursa 17K, with your 2:1 aspect ratio and your large format sensor. Why do we need an anamorphic lens? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, we do not need an anamorphic lens for the same reasons that they needed anamorphic lenses in the 1950s and beyond. At that time, it was a much more banal and functional purpose that they used these anamorphic lenses, which was for format and for creating a panoramic movie. Now we can do that with the sensor, and we have so much resolution we can basically do anything we want. But over the last 60 to 70 years, we have fallen in love with the unintentional consequences of the technology. And so you could see these aberrations or imperfections that are innately part of the image as the signature look or signature tool marks of the tool. And so these residual artifacts are a way of connecting what we think of as a cinematic aesthetic to the art and the artist. So aspects that I can think of that initially appeal to me are things like oval-shaped out-of-focus bokeh, streak flares, so when the light hits the lens you have these beautiful streaks that, of course, engineers would say all of this is terrible and things we don't want in the image. And of course, other aberrations like astigmatism, which is the inability of a lens to focus vertically and horizontally in the same plane. Coma, which is the outer edges of the image streaking or flaring out. And lower contrast are things that, from a technical perspective, may not be desirable in engineering an image, but they are appealing as artist tools in order to convey a feeling or an emotion. And so many of us have feelings and emotions associated with the movies that we've grown up with, have been programmed by watching, and that our role models have used. And so those artists have affected the way I see the world and the way that many of us see the world. And these are the reasons that we chose to start Atlas Lens Company. So the concept of Atlas Lens Co. is to put the world of cinematography in your hands. And what we hope to do is bridge the past, the best of the past of technology, with the best possible future of technology and artistry for all people. And I think we're doing okay at it. I don't know, if anybody tried an Atlas lens before here? If you haven't, we have a little booth here. You can go give the lenses a try, and I'd be happy to walk you through our whole catalog of lenses and let you have a little touch and try experience. And we hope you get a chance to test them out and enjoy them. Does anybody here know about the Japanese concept of ikigai? So ikigai is the concept of a well-balanced lifestyle. So if you think about your personal journey as an individual in this world, you can ask yourself, what are the things that I enjoy doing? What are the things I'm good at doing? What are the things that the world needs? and what are the things I can make a living doing. And sometimes, in the worst case scenario, all four of those things are diametrically opposed to one another. So you can be really, really good at something, but you just hate doing it. And that's not a world I want to live in. I don't know about you, but I mean, imagine being so good at playing guitar, but you just hate doing it. I would hate that.
Right.
I would not like that at all. Or imagine, you go to work and you just hate your job, but you're making a living. You know you have to make a living to pay for your family, your pets, your house, your food, but you really hate doing what you're doing. And maybe you're not good at it either. Nobody wants to live in a life like that. And so Ikigai is about having a well-balanced lifestyle to give yourself enjoyment, but also give the world a better possibility for the future. And so for Atlas, we sort of developed our own Atlas Ikigai for what we thought a lens might be. And so I was in a fortunate position in my life to say, what is it that I want out of a lens? If I could have a dream lens, what would it do? And so the things I identified would be that it would have a really good balance of excellent optical performance, very fair price, excellent reliable mechanical performance, and of course it has to be manufacturable. So we have to make it repeatable and accessible to a new generation of filmmakers. And so we sought to balance these four quadrants and bring it into a perfect circle in the center. And so far I think we're doing okay at it, but you be the judge. Tell me after you try the lenses and tell us what we can do better. Because there's another Japanese principle that is extremely important to me in my life and into what we do at Atlas, which is the concept of Kaizen. And Kaizen means process of ongoing improvement. So it's not setting out and saying, we wake up one day and all of a sudden we're perfect, or we wake up and open our eyes and the world around us is perfect. But every day, if we're able to improve even 0.5% in what we've done the day before, we're going to be doing so much better over time. So it's slow progress of polishing, and that's interesting because that's also how lenses are made. Polishing, rounding, and bringing things into the center. And so I see this as a lens is a portal. It's a portal of ideas. It's a place that can transport your ideas to an audience. It's a tool that can transport an audience's mind into a better place and give you the possibility for a better future. And so I think that's something that holistically to me is really important. It makes me wake up every day and say, I am so lucky to be getting to do what I do, be here with you, experience this, be here with you, and try all the most beautiful lenses in the world, make the most beautiful lenses in the world, and hopefully make a better place for all people to enjoy, tell their stories, and share their vision. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a ramble and was focused enough.
No, it's
We'd
good.
love to take a few questions and then, yeah, we'll get out of here. So I think we've only gone 10 minutes overtime so far. Let me know, you wave at me if we're out of our element, but if anybody has any questions or comments about what we've presented or talked about today, or any of the history of anamorphic lenses, or the possible future of anamorphic lenses in general, Lens Summit, we are here for you. Yes? Vertical anamorphic, thank you for bringing that up. So I'm so glad you're here, and I didn't plant you here, but and you mentioned it earlier and I forgot, so thank God for you. Vertical anamorphic, so love it. This is very prescient because as we were mentioning earlier, a lot of people are talking about vertical content for the phone or for social media. And I've been in the situation before where I'm having to film for a client like Facebook, and I had to film Cardi B, the pop star, and they said, okay, we need 3 deliverables. We're only gonna have Cardi for 20 minutes, and she's gonna be stressed out, and she's gonna be in a rush. And so you better make it perfect, Dan. You better film this perfectly, and we need it to be aesthetically interesting, beautiful, and we only have 20 minutes, and by the rent this, we only can afford it. And I said, well, I scratched my head. I said, well, maybe, what if we shoot this in anamorphic, but instead of a panoramic movie, we turn the camera so it's vertical, so you have a tall sensor. And then with the anamorphic lens, it'll stretch out to be a square. So we're going to get all of the resolution of the sensor in your master recording, and it's going to be about a 1:1, which is perfect for Instagram. Of course, it's 5:4 now on Instagram, not 1:1, but it used to be 1:1. And then we'll have less pixels that we have to crop to make a vertical 9:16, and less pixels that we'll have to crop to make a 16:9. And I could just put frame guides for both directions, and we'll get a perfectly, somewhat center punched composition with a nice grid. And they said, well, show us some tests. I said, okay, no problem. So we did a test. We turned an Atlas Orion, we turned the red Komodo vertically, so we'd have a 9:17 sensor, and then with the anamorphic 2x lens, the Atlas Orion, it turned out to be a 17:18 aspect ratio when we de-squeezed it. And so with that 17:18 aspect, you have almost a perfect square. And then we had the frame guides. We ran it
Just
through
cut
post.
it up.
Yeah, we ran it through post, and they loved it. And so that's how we filmed Cardi B.
Are you seeing more and more of that?
Yeah, more and more people are using it. So actually, back in 2017 is when we wrote a white paper on this concept, and we call it Atlas Scope 90. 90 for turning the camera 90 degrees. But actually, again, historically, I have to pay homage to the greats of history. So we were not the first people to do this. Actually, in 1970, in the Montreal 70 World's Fair, there was some use of vertical anamorphic orientation for an immersive, large-scale theatrical experience. And so, something that's really important to me actually is this whole World's Fair idea, and I'm inspired by Walt Disney and his inspiration from World's Fairs to create a place that people gather together, much like we're doing here at Lens Summit, and showcasing the best of what we do, and comparing notes, competing slightly, jousting a little bit, but only in good fun, and showing off the best of what's possible. So to your point, we started with this in 2017, doing this vertical anamorphic stuff, and we didn't push it too hard because we wanted to let people figure out for themselves what they want. But more and more people are interested in it now, a lot because of the vertical content for things like reel shorts, but we're actually seeing the use of this even in major motion pictures. So has anyone heard about the movie Project Hail Mary? So that's going to be coming to theaters soon, but apparently Greg Fraser used anamorphic lenses, and including some Atlas anamorphic lenses, in a vertical orientation to create a square picture instead of a panoramic widescreen picture. And I'm looking forward to speaking with Greg about why he chose to do that, but I believe it's not just for the format, but rather some unique aesthetic qualities that he wanted to imbue in the film in this way. And so some of the interesting things about the way that we do it at Atlas, or propose that you do it, and by the way, we call Atlas Scope 90 an open format, so it's an open source concept. You could do it with any lens that you can turn 90 degrees in the mount. So we like to turn the camera so that you have standard vertical oval bokeh and horizontal streak flares, because we still want to have a little bit of the traditional look. But of course you can just turn the lens in the mount, and then you'll have rugby ball shaped bokeh, football for us Americans. That's different here. That would be spherical. But yeah, where am I going with that? The key point there is, I think it's interesting because it's a new aesthetic. You get sort of a format magnification. So if you're on a Super 35 size sensor, it gives you a virtual sensor size that might be something akin to full frame. And if you're on a full frame sensor, it might give you a look that's akin to medium format look. And that's because you're going to get more of the aberrations out in the outer fields. And those aberrations are sort of cues that make you think it's a larger format than it is. And so, pretty interesting thing to try. We can definitely set it up for you if you'd like to check it out or try it for yourself. And we even have a little card that gives you, in 4 easy steps, the notes you would need in order to implement this yourself with any anamorphic lens that you can turn in the mount. And I love the questions.
No, that's nice. You have a little guide, easy guide.
Single sheet QR code, and I can make that available to you immediately following the presentation. Should have put it in the slide deck, my bad. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Welcome your feedback. Yes?
How do you feel about about zooms and atlas?
How do I feel about zooms? Very excited for the future, is what I can say. Yes. Anamorphic zooms? Yes. Tell you afterwards. You tell me what you want, and we'll see if we can implement it in what we're doing. Yeah, we'll take your wish lists. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, don't be shy. We're friendly. You can come speak to us afterwards if you want, and we can make this slide deck available for you offline if you want it. So, thank you so much for having us. You have one more question? Yes.
See, there's loads of Chinese brands coming out at the moment with these anamorphics. What's the difference between an atlas anamorphic and one of these sort of cheaper?
Yeah, so he's bringing up the notion of a even less expensive anamorphic. So I think we have to, again, look at the historical context here. But in 2015, when we started development on the Orion series in 2016, there was only very few market choices. You could only rent anamorphic lenses from a major rental house like Panavision, which is fantastic. But if you were someone shooting stuff for Facebook with Cardi B like me, it might not be on the cards for us to be able to rent those beautiful lenses and use them the way that we needed to use them for that particular job. But I lusted after the opportunity to use the tools of the people who inspired me to make images like the images of those who inspired me. And it was very unattainable. And so our mission was to make something that would be more attainable. You could also go buy something like a Lomo square front or round front, and those in 2015 were much more expensive than they were in 2002. Back in 2002 when I saw Punch Drunk Love and I found out you could buy a square front for $500, I said, well, I don't know where I'm going to get $500 in 2002. I'm a set lighting technician, I'm pretty broke, and by the way, I'm like, an aspiring DOP. I'm just a lowly set lighting technician. And $500 is hard to come by, but if I'd had that $500 then, would have been a great investment, because those things skyrocketed up. I think at the peak those were like 10,000 to 12,000 per lens US, and now they're like leveled off around 6, 7, 5. But you were asking about more affordable options than Atlas. So when we came out, we were the people offering the first professional sub $10,000 anamorphic lens, and people said, you are out of your minds. A $10,000 anamorphic lens that's a professional tool, you're out of your minds. And we said, no, it's real, we're really doing it, and we did. And then, over time, people caught wind and said, hey, if these guys can do it, why can't we do it? And of course, much like anything else, you can make something that looks like something, or even in some ways functions like something, but if you don't know why you're doing it, you're going to probably make a pretty shitty one, to be honest with you. I'll just call it what it is. You might say, okay, yeah, I can make a car. It's going to be a thing with 4 wheels and it will roll down the street, but what happens when the engine stops running, or, and if you don't really understand what the objective is, you're going to make something that pretty much sucks. So without being, I'm kind of being an asshole, but
No, you're not.
what I can say is like, hey, I'm not mad at it, because those people are making something that's actually introducing a whole nother generation of people to the concept. And so if that's their first introduction to it, I see it like fast food, right? Sometimes you're out and about and you're like, I'm starving. McDonald's is only $1 for 6 chicken nuggets, and it sounds so good. And then you eat it, and then you're like, okay, like that, it was a food-like object. It went through my body. I don't know how I feel now, but it served its purpose for a short time. And my outlook is that, like, eventually those people who are pursuing that will realize that that's a very limited number of people that you can address. The total addressable market size for a product of this category is not nearly as big as they think it is. So I think they bit off more than they could chew, in that they have very little understanding of what the purpose is, what the heart and spirit of it is, but they see a glimmering golden castle that's a castle that we built in homage to the greats before us. And they say, oh, that we could do that, and then they try it, and then they find out, oh yeah, actually we have no clue what we're doing. But that's
they're just chasing one thing in this
they
circle.
might be chasing one part of the ikigai. Yeah, probably
price
that.
and profit.
These two zones, maybe.
Yeah.
That's I'm kind of talking it down, but hey, if that's what you have access to and you can do it, give it a shot. Let me know. I've tried all of them, and what I could say is that, again, it's an object that resembles the purpose, but it doesn't really nail it. But there will be innovation from that as well. I know there will. It's inevitable, and so it's often the unexpected consequences we have to look out for. And so I wouldn't be as cautionary about it. I'd say give it a try and see what you think. But what I can tell you is that we are people who ultimately care so much about what we do, and my company is founded by people who are camera people. I don't know if that's true about those other companies, but if we do look at companies like Hawk, Vantage, those are cinematographers. If we look at Panavision, the heritage of the people that have put so much work into it, it's because they love it. They love movies. I can see that they love DOPs. They love storytelling. And that's what they care about. And I see that at Ari. I see that at Panavision. I see that at Cook. I see it at these halls here. And I think, who knows what the future is. All we can do is keep going and be on the lookout for more innovation from us, because we will always innovate and we'll always look out for camera people, and you can rely on our product. We're here teaching people how to service the lenses. So if something does go wrong, we design them to be very repairable. So if you're on a camera truck late at night and something comes out of collimation, you can fix it in a pinch. I don't know if you could put something else in that same category.
And they have very reactive service. Somebody was telling me day before yesterday that they're out of Australia and they call up Atlas and somebody's on the other line walking them through the repair procedure, So it's pretty impressive.
So I'd say, besides ultimately that we care so much, what we put into the technology is inevitably and inherently different because of the design parameters. So it's a inherent design process. It's design thinking, and it's built from the heart. So, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Hopefully that's lovely. Thank you for having us, and we'll see you soon.